Hello, hello, and welcome back to MoJo JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the one and only Powerpuff Girls / JoJo's Bizarre Adventure recap and discussion podcast. I'm Raven.
And I'm Allison.
Today we are going to be discussing the last episode of Phantom Blood, which is called The Final Ripple, and the first episode of Battle Tendency, which is called New York's JoJo. Don't know that there is any major PPG or JoJo news, except that the Powerpuff Girls comic that's currently out by Dynamite, they released the cover for issue number 5. That looks pretty neat to me, but other than that, we can probably just start talking about the episode.
Dio screams and falls and chops off his own head as the Haman rushes through his body. Wang Chang, the apothecary, picks up the head and says they will get him a new body. So then we see like a newspaper from December 4th, 1888 of the London Press. And it says 73 residents are missing overnight from Wynn's night lot. Speedwagon crushes the mask with a sledgehammer. JoJo, and then we skip ahead. JoJo marries Arena and will travel to the Americas. Speedwagon is almost too late to see them off. A priest is on board, headed to Mexico. 4 guys carry on a big box, suspiciously like a coffin. Arena cries over some birds and her love of the noble JoJo. The drunk priest's crucifix fell through a grate onto the box that looks like a coffin. JoJo and Arena drink wine. Wang Chang makes an appearance and JoJo knows Dio is alive. JoJo tells Arena to go to the cabin and lock herself in. The priest finds the coffin, which appears to be locked from the inside. A jewel in the coffin hits the priest at a high velocity in the face, I think killing him.
Oh yeah, it smashed the hell out of his face.
Yeah, I mean, it looked crazy. Like his eyes.
Yeah, I don't think he survived that one.
Wang Chang opens the box and reveals Dio's head in a container, kind of like the presidents in Futurama. He asks where his body is. Arena stays in the dining room where there is one of Dio's zombies with a long tongue. Dio wants to take over JoJo's body and shoots laser beams at JoJo's neck as Arena enters the room. Blood gushes from JoJo's neck. Arena recognizes Dio as Dio's fiends wreak havoc on the ship. JoJo can't use the Haman. Dio insists on respecting JoJo. He wants to painlessly remove JoJo's head. JoJo tries to use Haman and takes out Wang Chang, but feels something break inside his body. He's used all the Haman in his body. Chang's head is gone, but his body is holding a part of the ship still that will cause the ship to explode. JoJo wants Arena to leave the ship, but she refuses. A baby cries and distracts her. JoJo urges her to save herself and the baby. The zombies burst in as the ship begins to explode. Arena holds the baby and Dio grabs JoJo's body, like with these weird tentacles from his neck, I think.
Yes, yeah.
He plans to go back to the coffin. And then I think JoJo stabs Dio in the neck. Is that what happens?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
He holds Dio's head to his chest. He wants to hold him till the ship explodes. JoJo is dead. The ship explodes, and then next we see Arena is telling of JoJo's accomplishment. Arena escaped in the coffin with the baby and is somehow already pregnant with JoJo's baby. And then at the end, there appears to be ruins with a body encased in roots, and it kind of looks like the inside of a throat. And that is the end of the episode.
I don't really have a ton to add there. I will say when I was looking at the Wikipedia, the priest has a name even though he barely shows up, and that name is Father Styx, named of course after the band Styx.
Oh. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, well, sometimes even just like the smallest character will get a name, and they will be named after a band or a musician. I always have trouble saying musician for some reason.
Yeah. So I am relieved that Dio is finally killed and the mask is destroyed, but obviously there's however many seasons of this. This is not the end. And since it's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm trying not to spoil anything with the next episode, but there has to be some sort of JoJo
Yes.
that continues on. Yeah.
A lot of times also in like shonen anime and manga, like the main character does not get killed off like that, so it was like a huge surprise that they killed Jonathan. And then the next part, of course, we have Joseph Joestar, his grandson, and kind of I think because they for whatever reason that I think the editors wanted him to still kind of look like the previous JoJo a little bit, even though I feel like that might confuse the audience a little bit. But I feel like their designs are dissimilar enough that I see them and I'm not gonna be like, oh man, which one's Jonathan and Joseph? At least in the anime, some of the later stuff Araki has drawn of them, they kind of do look like the same dude, and sometimes they'll even wear like little pieces or accessories that the other one has worn. So that does get confusing. I would say I definitely also wasn't expecting, like when I first watched it, to see like the main character get killed off. I was like, they're actually doing that, okay?
Yeah, because it's not like, I mean, now knowing how many, there's, what is there, 8 or 9 seasons or.
Yeah, well, there's like 6 parts of an animated, but there are 9 parts total currently. It's just 7 through 9 haven't been animated yet.
So for him to be killed in the end of the first part, when it's his name is in the title, is
Yeah.
not what you would expect. And okay, this other baby, that's not Smokey, is it?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I'm like, I mean, do we see this baby?
We encounter more about the baby. I think at the beginning of the episode, they kind of said a little bit.
Maybe I just missed that.
I believe they said at the beginning that the baby then married Joseph's dad, and they had a kid together, which was Joseph. I think Joseph's dad is also George, after like Jonathan's dad.
Okay, right. So he's not the son, he's the grandson.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure why we had to jump ahead so far, but all
Yeah.
right.
Sometimes there's some major time jumps, but some of the other parts, it's only about like 2 years apart. So it just kind of at the beginning, there's some big time jumps. So there is, like I said, there's a big time jump. It's 50 years later, and Speedwagon is now an oil tycoon. Straightso is still somewhat youthful because of his Haman and has succeeded Master Tom Petty. Speedwagon and Straightso are headed to Mexico to go investigate a Speedwagon-funded exhibition. They arrive in Mexico and see the humanoid stone figure who is surrounded by stone masks, much to their horror. We then cut to New York, where we meet Smokey, a local pickpocket. He steals from a man buying cola, but is grabbed by racist cops and beaten up. The one cop says he'll lock Smokey up for 20 years if he doesn't give him half of his pickpocket earnings and $20 each week. The man whom Smokey stole from follows them down into the alley and decides to cover for Smokey, saying that there was no crime because he'd given Smokey the wallet as a gift. Which I just sort of thought of it now, but it's sort of like a throwback to Mr. Joestar saying that he'd given the wife's ring to Dario to like not get him in trouble. Cop wants to arrest him too and wipes a booger on his face. The man loses his temper, smashes one cop's face, and uses a blast from his soda bottle to break the finger of another. He then freaks out because Quenny and Brianna will be mad at him for losing his temper. His name is Joseph Joestar. He's a gifted Haman user like his grandfather, Jonathan Joestar. Cut back to Mexico, where Straightso inquires about Joseph, and Speedwagon remembers that when Joseph was 13, this guy hijacked a plane they were all on, planning to kidnap Speedwagon for ransom. Joseph at first wasn't willing to help Speedwagon out, But one of the hijackers hit JoJo in the face, getting blood on the new suit his grandmother had given him, and he got pissed and used Tommen to defeat them. And then they all ended up jumping out of the plane. No parachutes. I don't know how high up that thing was. Then Straizo then kills everyone else on the expedition but Speedwagon and reveals his evil plan to use the stone masks to grant himself immortality. He was inspired by Dio's beauty and youth and wanted to do the same. Back in New York, Smokey goes to a restaurant with JoJo and Irina where a racist mafioso insults Smokey, calling him an animal and saying he didn't belong in the restaurant like everyone else. JoJo is pissed on his behalf, and granting Irina gives JoJo the go-ahead to go after the guy so long as he doesn't disturb the other guests. JoJo is so gifted at anticipating his opponent's moves that he says what the guy is about to say before he can say it. The guy has brass knuckles and proceeds to pummel the shit out of JoJo with them. Or so he thinks. He actually was punching a coat rack so hard that it went through his hand. A mafia friend slash acquaintance of Speedwagon's comes over and informs them that Speedwagon has been murdered. And they immediately suspect Straizo for some reason. Why they would suspect Straizo so quickly is beyond me when he's sort of a family friend. A little bit later that day, we see Smokey and JoJo are talking amongst themselves, seemingly about plastic surgery, when Straizo appears outside the restaurant. He has regained his youth using the stone mask because he's a vampire now, and JoJo doesn't recognize him at first. Straizo wants to kill JoJo before he can be fully trained in Hammon, but JoJo whips out a Tommy gun from nowhere and starts blasting, sending Straizo through the restaurant window. He declares war on Straizo as vengeance for Speedwagon.
Okay, the cop wiping the booger was pretty gross. At the ruins, the man in the ruins, they said he had DNA. Kind of interesting. And it's a little scary that there's like many masks.
So many masks.
And like Dio was always evil, and I know it like turns someone into a vampire that they probably still have that vampire thirst. But like what happens if a nice person with good intentions put the masks on? But anyway, I'm kind of scared that there's all those masks. But I mean, Dio was able to turn tons of people into zombies, so you don't really need multiple masks.
Yeah. You just gotta fight him or whatever.
And then JoJo said something about his grandpa and Speedwagon that they must have had a thing. Just thought that was funny. Didn't Arena get mad?
Yes, she was mad at the implications, like that she would have gotten with Speedwagon. A lot of people think though that like Speedwagon was maybe in love with Jonathan, and that's kind of why some of the parts where he's like kind of canoodling with Arena, he's kind of like, oh well, they're better off without me or whatever. He like joined them so quickly after getting his ass kicked in Ogre Street.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Straizo being suspected immediately, they did say something about him being a monk, but I don't know if if they knew that Straizo was on that expedition with Speedwagon, because I kind of thought they didn't know where Speedwagon went. Like, they had went to New York to see him, but then he wasn't there when they got there.
Yeah, they were there waiting for him. That's right, I forgot about that.
And then JoJo, like, going against, I think it was the racist guy, but it was like almost like Sherlock Holmes stuff, the way he was deducing everything. So maybe we'll see a little bit of detecting stuff in this new section of the show.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of the most clever JoJo's for sure. So my favorite thing about part two, Battle Tendency, is that Joseph is voiced by Ben Diskin, the voice actor who played Number One in Codename Kids Next Door. So it's like I get to hear Number One calling someone a bastard.
Oh.
It's just funny to imagine him there instead of Joseph and just like cussing people out or whatever. It's just it kills me. I think he also voices number two. I'm not totally sure, but it's funnier to imagine it's all straight lace and stuff. Thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode when we discussed the final ripple in New York's JoJo. Next week, we talking more Battle Tendency. I need to look up what those first two called, but it will be episodes 2 and 3 of Battle Tendency. If you've been enjoying the podcast, follow, rate, subscribe, send some reviews our way. And if you're listening to this on YouTube instead of on your podcatcher of choice, hit the like and subscribe buttons. Leave a comment if you're feeling generous. That would be super cool. We'd love to be able to get the pod out to more people, and having like positive reviews could definitely help do that for us. So until next time, up at the roundabout, goodbye.
Bye bye.